Chapter 43. There is no such thing as a little freedom. Either you are all free, or you are not free. Walter Cronkite, American journalist, 1965. I stared at the clock over our stove, willing the hands to move faster, and then feeling frustrated because they didn't. Everything had been cleaned and packed up, so now there was nothing left but to wait and to think, and then to think about waiting. It was unbearable, and I didn't understand how Mama could sit so calmly on the couch and knit a blanket she knew full well would never be finished. I did have one particular thought that continued to nag at me. As silly as it might have been to care about something so trivial, I wished I had offered Anna the harvest from our garden. I looked back on all she had done for me since we started on the tunnel. What I had thought was her cruel rejection of our friendship was only her way of creating distance between us, so that she wouldn't have to know anything I might be up to. Then, when the Stasi began putting more pressure on her, she had warmed to me again. By my cold responses, she must have known I was keeping secrets. But when she discovered them, and would have been entirely justified in revealing everything she knew, she held back to protect me, risking herself and everyone she loved. And in return, I couldn't even offer her family our harvest. But there was something I could do. I sat at the small desk in my room that afternoon and began to write a letter. Her name was at the top, but the letter wasn't for her. It was for the Stasi who would search my apartment tomorrow. Dear Anna, I'm writing this letter to apologize for my rude behavior over the last couple of months. You were broken-hearted when your brother tried to escape and never guessed he would try such a thing. But I wasn't there for you like I should have been. I wasn't the friend you deserved. What I couldn't tell you was that I came to understand why Peter left. You don't know, so I'm telling you now. He was right. We are not animals who can be corralled behind a cement wall, and although the state might listen to our words and watch our actions, they will never know my thoughts, which means they will never truly control me. And if I am my own person, then it's time for me to leave this prison. Somewhere in his growing up, Peter saw the sun in the west and couldn't live through another dark night. Nor will I. If you had known my plans, I know you would have tried to stop me, so please forgive me for keeping you in the dark. Your truest friend, Gerta. I read the letter over and over again, erasing parts that didn't seem quite right and replacing them with words that better communicated my feelings. Everything I wrote in there was true, except for the last couple of lines. Those were meant to protect Anna from any accusations of helping us escape. Then I left the letter on my desk where it would easily be found tomorrow. Once I left my room, Mama had returned to cleaning. I suppose that kept her mind busy, but at the moment she was polishing the brass knobs on an old rocker in the corner of the room. She was as anxious as I was. In the center of the room was a pile of the things she wanted to bring with us to the West. It was far more than she and I could carry together, and I knelt beside it to weed out what could be left behind. Mama let me do it without protesting. Maybe she figured that would keep me busy too. I didn't want any of my clothes, not one piece. They were bland and orderly and represented a life I intended to leave behind. Besides, I'd seen the magazines and knew how girls my age were dressing elsewhere. Fritz wouldn't want his clothes either, and I promised myself that I would make Mama change her fashions too. It was for her own good. In the center of the pile was a box of china that had been passed down to my mother when she was married. It had been in her family for generations, which meant it had come through 2 world wars, the Allied bombings, the hunger winter of 1947, and somehow had even survived the tennis balls my brothers swore they never tossed around our apartment. Mama loved those dishes, and so did I. They were supposed to come to me one day. But how would we ever carry them so far? I shook my head at her and pushed the box aside. Mama must have known I was right because her only protest was a weak sigh and passing frown. She knelt down and wrote on a paper, "For Frau Eberhardt, I forgive you." I set her note on top of the box more gently than Frau Eberhardt deserved. If my mother was trying to teach me a lesson, then the point of it escaped me. I hoped to understand forgiveness better one day. Moving my attention back to the pile, I found my old stuffed bear near the bottom. One eye was missing and the stitching had come loose along his back, but I never cared that he wasn't perfect. For weeks after the barbed wire fence went up, and Papa and Dominic didn't come home, I wrapped this bear in my arms every night and cried into its fur. It had comforted me then, but within a few hours I would have my father back again. I didn't need the bear anymore. Mama also had her Bible in the stack. I shook my head and started to move it aside, but Mama pulled it back, insisting it must come with us. I took another paper and on it wrote, "For the Stasi, who need it more than we do." Then I set it on the Bible and handed it over to her. She read the note, silently mouthed words I couldn't read, and then set the Bible aside. As part of her insistence that we leave everything cleaner than the day it was new, Mama suggested we put away the items that couldn't come with us. Afterward, we shared a small supper together. I wished there was more, but told myself I could have as big a supper as I wanted tomorrow. We didn't say much to each other. Our hearts and minds had already flown to the tunnel, so nothing was left to talk about here. Once we were cleaned up, Mama announced it was time to go and meet Fritz, to take him to the military station. I literally dropped everything and dove into a sweater to leave. After so many long days of back-aching work, our time had finally come. But even as we reached for the knob to leave, a knock came at our door. Mama quickly motioned for me to remove my sweater and clear everything from the front room that might look suspicious. Maybe it was only a neighbor coming to borrow an egg, or something equally innocent, but even the simplest visitor could present a major problem. We had only a few sacks, mostly old photos and family records, and a personal treasure for each person in the family. But I grabbed them and stuffed everything into an empty cupboard in the kitchen. Then she answered the door.
Frau Loh, guten Abend,
a man's voice said.
May we come in?
The door was just wide enough for me to see who was on the other side. When I did, my breath caught in my throat. This was no visiting neighbor. The Grenzers had come for us at last.